Hey folks, I'm here with Drew. We're actually at the Dugout Bait, but you swung by with your Angler of the Year trophy. Wanted to maybe ask you a few questions, just kind of a retrospective on, each of the events that led up to your winning Angler of the Year.
Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy now in retrospect. Like you said, it's mind-boggling that I actually won 3 events. I mean, winning 1 is incredible, right? When you just win 1 event, that's amazing. But to win 3 in 1 year, now that I think about it, I don't think I'll ever have a season like that ever again. I mean, I'm going to strive to do it, obviously, but it's just super unlikely.
Let's take a look at this. I mean, it
started here, March 19th, 7th place at the Harris Chain.
Yep.
And that was actually made all possible by a big 23.5-inch fish that I think was big bass I think it might have been big bass that day. I can't remember. Maybe somebody else beat me. But if I don't have that fish, because in the area maybe 10 people launched where I did, and then I was the only one that cashed a check in that tournament, so it was only because of that one huge bite. It's pretty much a Florida bag, right? One giant and a bunch of just medium and small ones. So fortunate to get 7th thanks to that one huge fish. And then here in April 16th, I went from Harris Chain to where we at, Grand Lake. I'd never been there before. Never been to Harris Chain too, actually, but never been to Grand. It was pretty cool going to Oklahoma and catching largemouth bass. Listen to this, guys. Dun dun dun. On the main lake. Drew Gregory was on the main lake in a spawning pocket, so just threw that Z-Man cross-eyes jig
and not up in a river.
Not up in a river. Yeah, main lake. I found a spawning pocket.
You don't like rivers, do you?
No, man. You know me. Of course, everyone knows I don't like rivers. Not me, not at all. So that was cool. Throwing that jig and winning that tournament was pretty cool. Pretty special for sure. And then next tournament was first place over there at Smith Lake, Alabama. So it's kind of cool. You go from largemouth, in the central U.S. over to the southeast and catching Alabama bass. A mixed bag. I actually had a big largemouth kicker, 19-something, that helped. But that was the craziest tournament of all because Grand Lake, I just hammered them pretty good. And at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, I had a very big stringer already. And I thought, man, I got a good chance at winning this thing. And then this one was different. I had like mid-70s. I was probably middle of the pack. And then all of a sudden, in the last hour and a half, I've replaced every single fish on my stringer. They didn't come off. When I hooked up with them, they stayed on. A big, Alabama spotted bass, Alabama bass technically, that's what they are. And then a huge largemouth and a couple other solid Alabamas, and then ended up winning it by like a quarter or half an inch over Chris Hartman. It was very, very close. So that was pretty magical hour and a half there when it looked very down for a long time. Then I would go over to October 8th, the one that I think 8th and 9th. It was a 2-day tournament. The one I think people will always remember the most because of, a protest that occurred, basically like, hey, did he get to his water legally? Did he stay in his kayak? Could he have stayed in his kayak? And fortunately, I filmed the whole tournament, and I was able to show them, with my video proof, like how,
not breaking the rules.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that anyone protests. That's not people shouldn't look at that as a negative thing. That should be almost like commonplace because it keeps it honest. Keeps it honest. Yeah, that keeps it honest. You got to have that in there so people know you can't just get away with anything because you got to be able to prove, if you're challenged. And so that was cool. And then I was able to prove it. And so now it's kind of cool, man, because that tournament's probably it's more legitimate than any tournament ever because it was a huge investigation.
Right.
They figured it out. So now it just feels good that there's no doubt from anybody that, I stayed in my kayak. I never got out. And I was able to prove it and show it. So, and then, of course, they reversed the decision and gave me the title, which, of course, led to this trophy here. Because without that win, if I get a 0 and I'm disqualified, of course, none of this is possible. I don't hold this trophy right now. So winning 3 in a row is nuts, man. Just thankful to all my sponsors and just grateful for family and everybody that allows me to do this, and of course God for making these incredible places that we get to go explore and fish. So the older I get, the more sentimental I am, man. Especially with kids, it's like, dude, this is special, man. If I never win again, anything else doesn't happen, I've won my fair share. And
congratulations, man. I do actually want to talk torpedo a little bit. You did none of this. You didn't do any of this with the torpedo. It's a great tool to be able to access all kinds of water.
Absolutely. So
what changed your mind? You were using a different motor. What brought you to? That's what I want to do.
Well, I mean, a couple things. One, going up the rivers and creeks, this is like a mini little jet boat, so to speak, because you have the stern mount allows you to see the obstacles in front of you, the rocks and the logs, and navigate around them. So you can make sure that motor goes right in that little narrow cut that you need to make sure it goes through, so you don't hit it.
I
Plus,
actually
it
did a
gives.
video the other day. It actually releases on Tuesday, and I do a little bit of a tutorial of you're making your way up through really skinny water. How do you choose the deepest water to let your motor continue to eat, so you don't have to hop out and drag? And the best water is right next to the biggest rock. That's where it scours out. You got to get right close to the biggest rock you can, because that's where the river cuts enough of a channel to keep that prop moving and keep you hopefully motoring and paddling up through that skinny stuff.
If you, the more you learn about paddling in rivers, the more you're going to be a better angler and a better boater with your motor, because you can understand where those currents are, where the deep water is, stuff like that. So I always stress just keep learning about the rivers that are eating water, because it's going to help you catch fish and get to the fish. So
you've been running the ultralight 1103 for a couple months. I mean, I only rigged your Shoaly at Westbrook, a couple months ago. What's your experience been with it so far?
It's cool, man. It really is cool. I mean, I knew it was going to be awesome and a game changer, but the speed I'm getting is way faster than I ever got. A stern mount also kicks up, especially with the Innovative Sportsman rock guard that I have on there. It kicks up. So I mean, it's really like kind of indestructible, man. I've been very impressed. There's a few things that come loose when you're banging it as hard as I do constantly, and I go kind of full speed. But I've learned, how to kind of adjust those things and be a little bit of a mechanic, which we all have to do with these motors, especially if you're going into some crazy wild places that are skinny. It's really not that hard and complicated as it may look when you first get one. It really has not been. Now I understand it, and I know how to use it. I know when it kicks up, what I'm supposed to do with my feet, and I'm just kind of learning it. So, but it lets me get to places a lot quicker, and that's going to help. And get to these little like backwaters in this tournament. For this championship, I was in a backwater. I went in some skinny water. It was kind of had to like even trim the motor a little bit to get it to kick through to kind of a mud flat and paddle a little bit. So it all worked out good. It's getting me fish that I've never been able to get to before, and then a chance to bolt out of there and go get some other stuff that's in my rotation too, way faster than I could with a paddle, obviously. So.
Well, keep grinding.
I will.
And keep grinding.
That's right.
Because that lets you grind both ways.
Exactly. Thanks, buddy.
Congrats, dude.
All right. See you.